Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke absent. Councilmember Circo.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. We have a quorum. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We have no presentations and awards tonight, no personal appearances, so we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Feuerborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Cataret to make a staff report for Development Services.
Thank you, sir. Two items this evening. First, just want to give the council an update on the 2020 census and where we're currently at. Nationally, the response rate is at 63.3%. State of Missouri, it's at 63.4%. Raymore is at 78.3%. So a strong showing from our residents. That number goes up by about 0.1% a day. So hopefully we'll be in the 80th percentile here shortly. From the Census Bureau, they have started field collection, so they have started door knocking. There was some question whether they were going to suspend that, but they are in limited capacity going out door to door. But that effort will end on September 30th, as well as the ability for residents to go online and self-report will end on September 30th. Then the Census Bureau will go through their analysis and are currently saying they will meet the statutory deadline of getting the national count numbers to the president by December 31st. And then they would turn around and get the information to the states by March 31st. So still, with everything going on, are staying on track and on schedule. So that's good to hear. But most excited about we've had a very good response rate from our residents. So higher than what we had in 2010 at this time. So that's very positive. That's second.
Jim, to follow on with that, Jim, I was going to say, I saw a Channel 9 editorial today where the station chief was advocating for people to participate in a census, actually advocated for people who had taken a census to reach out to their neighbors, which I thought was a great idea, neighbors, co-workers, people like that, to ask them, because a lot of our funding, our federal funding and state funding is based upon the accuracy of our census. And if we can encourage people within our community to complete that and get our numbers up even higher, we stand a better chance of doing much better down the road. And as you know, we're all working very hard toward that block grant or that grant that we have with the state for the I-49 corridor and the new bridge. So we would also, from the council here, would encourage folks to reach out. If you have done it, thank you. And if you haven't, please do so. It's very quick. You can go right on the census website and get that accomplished. And that, I think it's just like census.org or something, isn't it?
That's correct, sir.
Yeah, so it's very easy to do. It takes about 5 minutes of your time. There's probably only about a dozen questions on there. So hopefully we can get our numbers up even higher. I know we've done, in comparison to our surrounding communities, we've done very well. And I just wanted to add that I saw that on TV, and I thought that was a great advocacy for people reaching out to folks that they come in touch with to let them know how important the census is.
Thank you for that, sir.
Thank you.
Second item, just look at the upcoming commission meetings. The next meeting of the commission, August 18th, there actually may be a need to meet. An issue came up today on the Prairie View subdivision, which, if you remember, I believe the last meeting we actually accepted the infrastructure for that to allow building to start occurring. There is a question on the pipeline easement that may need to be resolved through a replat. So working on that today, so that may necessitate the commission meeting on the 18th. I do know the commission will meet September 1st. 2 public hearings. One will be for our fiscal year 2021 to 2025 capital improvement program. As you recall, the Planning Commission reviews that document and submits a recommendation to the council on the CIP. Second public hearing will be on our 32nd amendment to the Unified Development Code. This amendment would establish the standards for the placement of small wireless facilities in our city right-of-way. So as the technology emerges for our wireless carriers to go to the 5G network, there was law that was passed in Missouri in 2018 that allows those carriers to use our right-of-way and utility poles that exist within our right-of-way to mount their equipment. So we don't have any applications currently, but staff wants to be proactive, have the guidelines and policy in place before we get an application. So we're bringing forth that amendment to the commission on September 1st. That's what we currently have scheduled, and that concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Hearing none? Okay, Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Mr. Carteret. I would ask Chief Zimmerman to make a report for the police department.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. As you all will recall, following the events in Minneapolis, we provided a strong statement on social media detailing our position about those events. And then subsequent to that media statement, in response to council concerns, I gave a brief staff report at the June 8th regular meeting, much like tonight, and we felt it was important to expand on the social media statement and further discuss the events and the impact that the citizen unrest and frustration appeared to be having on our community and our department at that time. This led to a decision for a more comprehensive presentation at a council work session on July 6th, solely dedicated to the operation of the police department. In addition to addressing topics such as hiring, training, equipment, and community outreach, I also highlighted a number of critical department policies that I believe are important in conversations about social justice. Some of these policies, not including all of them, response to resistance, racial profiling, the code of conduct, and discipline. During that presentation, you all will remember that I offered the community the opportunity to review any and all policies that might be of interest, in addition to the ones that I specifically highlighted, with the understanding that some of the operational portions of the policy might be redacted to provide for citizen safety as well as police department and officer safety. Several days after my presentation, I was asked for some of those policies, for an individual to review some of those policies. And as I started working with like really cumbersome, paper copies and redacting those paper copies, I started thinking whether there was a better way to do that. And I want to give credit here to Lauren Jones, because Lauren, and I've cleared it with him that I could actually mention his name tonight. Lauren was the one who asked for the copies of the policies, 4 of them to be exact at that time. And as we were thinking and deciding if there was a better way to do that, it was because of Lauren's interest in having those policies and being able to view those policies. So it was my conversation with him that started me thinking, about how we could be more transparent, not only with those individuals who ask for those policies, but with all the citizens in our community with those policies across the board, and not just when a citizen asks for a particular policy. So the captains and I began a complete review, revision, and sometimes redaction of the entire police department policy manual to make some necessary changes that were due to the policy manual, such as the carrying of a new weapon and some operational updates and the things that we're doing since the policy was last revised. So you will recall when Melissa Harmer reported to you in her communications report that I began working directly with her to create a direct link for each policy on the city website to provide easy and consistent access to our policies when a citizen is interested in gaining a better understanding of how we do business. So what Jim is going to do is he's going to show you how to navigate through to our policy manual, and how any citizen who is interested in police department operations can take a look at our policies. So Jim, if you'll show how to start. You see City Hall and then the police department, and Melissa has added down here at the very bottom a section on the policies and procedures where you can click directly to that. And then you see our policy manual, and Jim, just click on the introduction to start, that first one there. And so any citizen can see that whole section of the policy in its entirety. And any place that you see an asterisk in a policy, it indicates that we've made a substantive change to the policy with this revision, which takes effect now. And then Jim, if you'll click back, go to 15, the pursuit policy, where there's some fairly significant portions of the policy that are operational in nature, where, the officer's procedure would put them or the citizens at risk if that was made public. There are significant portions of the policy that are redacted there. And then, Jim, if you'll go back one more time and scroll down, and you'll see that there are a couple of policies that are fairly significant in the revision, such as the communications policy and then recovered property and evidence that are being reviewed by the individuals who are in charge of those areas, such as animal control, as I said, communications, dispatch, that are still under review and will be available on this site soon. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you all have any about how this works.
Anyone have any questions? Yes, Mr. Holman.
Not so much a question about how it works, but I was just curious, Chief, I'm sure you've done some benchmarking with surrounding departments. How many other departments in the area do this?
I know for sure because I actually used their format to do it. KCPD has that under their transparency section of their website. But yeah, there are several in the area, the biggest being Kansas City.
Thank you.
Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Chief, and also to Mr. Lauren Jones for you all working together and putting this out there, making it available to the public. And just kudos to taking the effort to all the staff, to also Melissa Harmer and all the IT to get this going, to give to your point earlier, to the transparency. So I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
And I actually spoke with Lauren today. I just got back. Today was my first day back from vacation. Spoke with Lauren, and he has been in it and looked at it, and I think Calvin Acklin has as well, or at least was going to. So, I know that it's out there, and they're taking a look at it and finding it pretty easy to navigate through.
Thanks, Chief. Anybody else? No, we'll move back to Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Just one last item. Next Monday night, August 17th, the 2020 work session has one topic on it. As we do the second meeting of August every year, it will be the proposed budget presentation to the council. We may have, because it will be in this format, normally we have all of the department heads there. I'm going to be working through this week to make sure that the core team will be there, Mr. Zur will be there, Parks and Recreation will be there, but we'll probably be limiting the number of department heads who can be there, and then be bringing them in the meetings that follow. Normally, the first one is primarily my presentation anyway. There aren't a lot of questions put directly to the department heads, but I'd like to get as many of them in here as possible while still practicing safe social distancing. Okay. That concludes staff reports tonight, sir.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody have any questions of Mr. Fearborn? If not, we'll move on along. Did somebody say something? Nope. Okay. We'll move on from committee reports to the consent agenda. We do have 3 items on our consent agenda tonight. One of them is an appointment of Simon Casas to the Park Board. Simon is with us in the room. Hi, Simon. Good to see you again. And the council minutes, and then we also have the appointment that we're going to put together in a resolution sent to the Cass County Commissioners for Mr. Townsend's appointment to KCATA's Board of Commissioners. So those are the 3 items on our consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to dispose of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve consent agenda items A, City Council minutes for July 27th, 2020. Item B, appointment of Simon Cass to the Park Board. And item C, appointment of Councilmember Townsend to the KCATA Board of Commissioners.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, sir. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7 yes and 1 absent. We'll now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3559 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3559 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2020 budget to create a benefits specialist position in the Administration, Human Resources Department and Division.
Thank you. To entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve Bill 3559, budget amendment for Benefits Specialist Human Resources Department.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3559. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7 yes and 1 absent. We'll now move on to new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3563 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3563 by title only, an ordinance pursuant to Section 67.110 of the revised statutes of Missouri, levying general and special taxes in the city of Raymore, Missouri for the year 2020.
Thank you. This item does require a public hearing. I'll open a public hearing at this time, and I'll ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will ask Ms. Williams to make the first part of the staff report, and then I'll be dovetailing off of that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Before you this evening for your consideration is the 2020 tax levy. Each year, the city is required by the state auditor's office to calculate and set our tax levy. This requirement must be recorded with the county clerk no later than September 1st. In odd-numbered years, the assessor's office assesses properties to account for changes in value. In an even-numbered year, the assessed valuation may increase based upon new construction. The basic theory of the Hancock Amendment is that the city's revenue from property tax in the general fund and park fund should be revenue neutral from year to year for non-growth related increases in assessments. There is an allowance for inflation, and this year the rate set by the state auditor's office is 2.3%. This means that typically as assessments from non-growth increase, then the levy decreases. The opposite is true when assessed values decrease. The general fund levy for 2020 is calculated to be 42 3/100 per $100 of assessed valuation. That's written as 0.4231. The park fund levy is calculated to be 11 3/900 per $100 of assessed valuation, which is 0.1139. And the debt service levy is the same as last year at 71 7/100 per $100 of assessed valuation, or 0.7170. The total city tax levy is recommended to be 1.2540, which is $1.2540 in total.
To add on to these recommendations from staff, would point out to the public and to the council, you'll notice that the park fund and general fund levies are slightly higher than what we printed. We were notified last Wednesday that the starting point of any levy in any year, as Ms. Williams has indicated, is when we take what was existing in the city last year, we can't make any more money this year off of what was existing plus inflation than we did last year. That's the revenue neutrality of the Hancock Amendment in those two particular funds. So the starting point of the levy at any given year is where we had the levy set last year, because they use that to figure the revenue. We learned that on November 2nd of 2019, the county realized that the assessed valuation that they had given us was set too high, which means assessed valuation is here, levy is here, that they are approving for us to be able to have. The assessed valuation was set high, their fault, not ours. So the assessed valuation was actually supposed to start here, meaning the levy could have been slightly higher. And when we're saying slightly here, we're talking hundreds of it next Monday night. But yeah, we got through last year with the lower amount being charged, but I do want the county to be aware that we are aware that it could have been more.
Yep.
Without it impacting the citizens.
Absolutely.
If the council will accept that recommendation.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim. Anyone else? No, great job on that. And because this is a public hearing, anyone from the public that wish to speak to this issue, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. I see no one coming forward, so I will close the public hearing at this time, and I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve Bill 3563, set into the 2020 tax levy.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the
Thank you,
motion.
Mr. Holman. Motion's been made by Mr. Townsend, seconded by Mr. Holman, that we approve the first reading of Bill 3563. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3560 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3560 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, establishing a stop sign within the city limits of Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Kraft to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As the Creekmore development has expanded to the east along 163rd Street, there's been a significant increase in both pedestrian and vehicular traffic at the intersection of Fox Ridge Drive and 163rd Street. We are requesting, in accordance with our policy, with both of those being collector streets, that a stop sign be established on Fox Ridge Drive. And I want to remind everyone that the purpose of a stop sign is to assign right-of-way at an intersection. We are not installing this stop sign or recommending installation of this stop sign to control speed on Fox Ridge Drive. Because of the amount of traffic and the pedestrians, we want to call specific attention to this intersection, so we will be placing flashing LED stop signs on Fox Ridge Drive. We've also noticed that there are some not really sight distance issues, but there is a little bit of a sight problem at the intersection of Creekmore Drive and Fox Ridge Drive, so we will also be installing flashing LED stoplights there as well. These are stop signs. They have a LED border around the stop sign. The cars pick it up, but it's not going to be very noticeable for adjacent homes or anything. With that, the staff does recommend establishment of a stop sign at this intersection.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions, Michael? Yes, Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Krass. Just a question. There was a stop sign there at one time, correct?
There was. I think it was back, 2012.
Right. And obviously, traffic has increased and speeds increased. Everything's increased on Fox Ridge Drive. Do you foresee in the future any more stop signs on Fox Ridge Drive?
I do not. The local roads have stop signs, but the collector roads, which are is Creekmore Drive and specifically 163rd Street, would be the all-way stop intersections.
Okay. Believe it or not, I did get a call on this stop sign, somebody, and so I drove it and I did stop, and it makes little difference on your time from going one end to the other. So I reported back to the constituent that commented on that, thinking that was going to keep him from moving freely through Fox Ridge Drive.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Krass? If not, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3560, establishing a stop sign.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I'll second the motion.
Thanks, Mr. Holman. It's been motioned and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3560. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Where were you guys when I was police chief? Sorry, did I say that out loud? Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3561 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3561 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Bright Construction, LLC for the Willow and Gravity Sewer Project, City Project Number 20-345-201, in the amount of $159,779, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Kraft to make the staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This project will extend a sanitary sewer from the northern boundary of the Lofts apartment building, northerly under 58 Highway to the, there's a private lift station that's operated and maintained by Foxwood Springs just to the west of the church and Mott Drive. This project will really do two things. One, it'll allow us to eliminate that lift station, excuse me, that has been a chronic maintenance problem recently for Foxwood Springs. It will also allow us to provide gravity sewer service to the Willow Wind subdivision, thereby, or the Willow Wind commercial area, thereby expanding the capacity of their sewers, which will allow for, in the future, redevelopment of that area. So with that, staff does recommend award of the contract to Bright Construction.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions of Mr. Kras? Yes, Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Kras, I would add, nice job getting this project bid out. Looks like it's well below the budgeted amount, and with a local contractor who's done good work for us in the past, I assume, too. So, yeah, good work on that, and look forward to seeing that project through completion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? If there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve Bill 3561, award of contract for Willow Wind Gravity Sewer.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3561. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could please have the first reading of Bill 3562 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3562 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with J. Richardson Construction for the 2020 Stormwater Improvements Project, City Project Number 20-350-201, in the amount of $67,464.20, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Let me guess, Mr. Kras?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The 2020 capital improvement program contained a number of small stormwater projects that we have compiled into one larger project. The three of the projects, and they're outlined on a map at the very last page of this particular council item, deal with some localized flooding area issues, and then there are two repairs associated with this. One is on the wing walls of the outlet to Silver Lake, and then another is a replacement of a stormwater inlet. So staff does recommend award of this contract to J. Richardson Construction.
Thank you, Mr. Kras. Any questions of Mr. Kras? Ms. Abdelgawad.
Just a quick question. I mean, I know how to read a map, but this is pretty small. Do you have the cross streets of where this work will be done?
There's one on North Crest Drive where we're replacing and enlarging a culvert. There is one, I believe, on Olive Street to do a little bit of cleanup. There is one near the cemetery to clean out some culverts and reestablish a ditch. There's one, I believe, on Ridgeview where or Ridgeway where the inlet is, and then it's on Silvertop Lane, about the middle of the block where the outlet is for Silver Lake.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any questions, Mr. Kras? If there aren't any, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3562, the award of contract for the 2020 stormwater improvements.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3562. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have this is a resolution. Could I please have the reading of Resolution 20-42?
The reading of Resolution 20-42 by title only, a resolution in support of the application to the Missouri Housing Development Commission for financing the grant Park Villas in Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you, sir. Staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Cataret to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Last week at council work session, staff discussed a project that was submitted by Jeff Beckler, who's representing Zimmerman Properties. They're a group out of Springfield, Missouri, who are proposing to develop a 48-unit affordable senior housing rental development. It would be at the southeast corner of Adams Street and Grant Drive, just north of 58 Highway, just to the west of the Ramblewood subdivision. The developer is proposing to utilize the low-income housing tax credit program, which does require approval from the Missouri Housing Development Commission. This Grant Park Villas, it's a proposed 2-story apartment building. Would consist of 1- and 2-bedroom units. There would be amenities on each floor within the facility. There will be an on-site property manager, and there'll be, as well as full-time maintenance staff. With this development, at least one tenant in each unit will have to be at least 55 years in age, and there will be income restrictions. Local support for this development is an important criteria in gaining approval of the commission. So Resolution 20-42 indicates City Council support for the application to be filed. Council did consider this same request back in 2019, and you did unanimously approve it at that time. However, in the 2019 cycle, they did not receive funding from MHDC. They have subsequently purchased the property. They're committed to doing this development. They see the need for this development within Raymore and request your support for the resolution. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Cataret. Any questions of Mr. Cataret? I know this has come before us before. I think everybody's aware of the situation, so I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the first reading of Resolution 2042, support the application to the MHDC for Grant Park Villas.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. The motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution 20-42. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Thank you. Okay, please have the first reading of Bill 3564 by title only.
The first reading of Bill 3564 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri approving the Dean Avenue Extension right-of-way first plat located south of North Cass Parkway, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Cataret to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, sir. Grant Harrison, who's representing KCI Raymore Industrial Land LLC, which is also Van Trust, did file a request for final plat approval for the Dean Avenue extension. This would be a plat of just the right-of-way that is needed for the extension of Dean Avenue south of North Cass Parkway. As you know, they're out there constructing the roadway now. But the city did require the right-of-way to be part of a plat. They will follow up with platting the adjacent land that's part of their development as they are able to make final decisions on the acreage that would go with each lot that they intend to plat. A planning commission did consider this request at its August 4th meeting and did vote 7-0 with one abstention to accept the findings of fact and forward this final plat request to the council with a recommendation of approval. Just for clarification, the abstention vote was at Planning Commission. Final plats are part of the consent agenda. They had minutes on the consent agenda, and one of the Planning Commission members who was absent for that meeting didn't want to vote for the minutes, so abstained, but also abstained on the final plat. So it was, in essence, unanimously recommended to the council. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Cataret? If not, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3564, Dean Avenue Extension right-of-way final plat.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3564. Any further discussion? Mr. Holman.
Just an observation, sir. You can tell you've been on the city council too long when Mr. Cataret can expect your question and answer it before you get the chance to ask it. So just an observation.
Thank you. Anyone else? There's no further discussion. All those in favor of the item? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Thank you. Brings us to the last item under new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3565 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3565 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri declaring the results of the August 4th, 2020 general obligation bond issue election questions and declaring this bill as an emergency.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Minimal, sir. Again, it's incumbent on the action's already been done. The voters have approved this particular item, so it just comes before you to declare those particular results. Again, in between the two readings, there is the opportunity for public input on an emergency read. That would conclude staff report, sir.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? You have in front of you the results of that election that concerned the city of Raymore. Hearing that this is, knowing that this is an emergency read for the declaration of this certification, I would ask for a second reading of the item in its entirety, or do we have to have the public hearing first?
First, you have to vote on the first.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we got to vote on that, I guess, don't we? There you go. Just trying to move things along here. Is there a motion? Could I entertain a motion? Yes, Mr. Townsend.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3565, declaring the election results for August 4th, 2020 GO bond emergency.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second, but I have a point of order question first. So if we have a public hearing, is it on the first reading of the bill or the second reading of the bill?
It's not actually a public hearing, sir. What code calls for is if there is an emergency reading, public input can be sought by His Honor in between the two readings.
Understood. I'll second the motion, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3565. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. As this has been declared an emergency ordinance, I would go ahead and entertain the second reading of Bill 3565 in its entirety.
The second reading of Bill 3565 in its entirety, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri declaring the results of the August 4th, 2020 general obligation bond issue election questions and declaring this bill as an emergency. Whereas a general municipal election was held on August 4th, 2020, and whereas it is necessary for the council to declare the election results of the general obligation bond questions, now therefore be it ordained by the council of the City of Raymore, Missouri as follows. Section 1, it is hereby found and determined by a canvass of the votes by the City Council of the City of Raymore, Missouri at the election held on August 4th, 2020 in conformity with the Comprehensive Election Act of 1977, revised statutes of Missouri, the provisions of the Charter, and ordinances of the City of Raymore as follows. Question 1. Shall the City of Raymore, Missouri issue its general obligation bonds in the amount of $17,575,000 for the purpose of acquiring rights of way and constructing, extending, and improving streets and roads within or leading to the city, including, without limitation, the A, redevelopment of the interchange, Interstate 49 and Highway 58 interchange, and widening of the Interstate 49 to 6 lanes to North Cass Parkway, B, reconstruction of Ward Road from 58 Highway to 163rd Street, and C, construction of and extending Sunset Lane from north of Highway 58 to 163rd Street, and D, reconstruction of Kurzwell Road from Highway 58 to 155th Street. Total votes received, yes, 3,800, no, 1,011. The City Council does find the general obligation bond issue question 1 for the Raymore streets was approved by the voters of the City of Raymore. Question 2, shall the City of Raymore, Missouri issue its general obligation bonds in the amount of $5,930,000 for the purpose of acquiring, constructing, improving, renovating, and equipping the park and recreation system within the city, including without limitation, the A, expansion of the Raymore Activity Center to include an additional basketball court, additional classrooms, and a yoga workout studio, B, adding new amenities to the outdoor event space at the Centerview, and C, adding new amenities to the Hawk Ridge Park Amphitheater. Total votes received, yes, 3,089, no, 1,719. The City Council does find the general obligation bond issue question 2 for the Raymore Parks was approved by the voters of the city of Raymore. Section 2, it is further found, declared, and determined that notice of said election was duly given and published in the manner provided by law, and that said election was held and conducted in all aspects in conformity with the Constitution and laws of the state of Missouri governing elections and subject to the provisions for charter cities. Section 3, severability. If any section, subsection, sentence, clause, phrase, or portion of this ordinance is for any reason held invalid or unconstitutional by any court of competent jurisdiction, such portion shall be deemed a separate, distinct, and independent provision, and such holding shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions thereof. Section 4, emergency reading. This bill is declared and authorized as an emergency reading in order to expedite progress on the projects and will be read in its entirety. Section 5, effective date. The effective date of approval of this ordinance shall be coincidental with the mayor's signature and attestation by the city clerk. Duly read this first time this 10th day of August 2020. Be it remembered that the above ordinance was approved and adopted this 10th day of August 2020 by the following vote.
Thank you, Ms. Warner. So now I would entertain opportunity for the public to comment on this particular item if they care to. Seeing no one come forward, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I would move to approve the second reading of Bill 3565, declaring of election results August 4th, 2020 GO bond.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Is there any further discussion? Yeah. Is there any further discussion? Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3565. Any further discussion? Here we go. You know what? I will always get the last word when we do the council comments, so I'm going to get in a first word this time. I want to thank the community for their support on this. I know everybody else is going to do that, and we need to, because it is a tremendous declaration of the support of this city government, this city body, and what they have done here in the approval of these great amenities. And I know that Mr. Fearborn has already started on working on the access to Ward Road and getting the combined efforts with the county in establishing that. That would probably be one of our first projects to get underway. And I'm so excited that this council put together such a wonderful package for our community, and to have them support it in the fashion that they have just makes me extremely proud to be the mayor of this community. And I wanted to get that out first. I'm sorry to steal you guys' thunder, but I'm always the last usually. But thank you all for that, and God bless you. There's some great things coming down the road. There really are, and it's bringing a lot of attention to the city of Raymore. And does anybody else have any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to public comments. If anyone from the public would like to address the council at this time, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one come forward, I will start the mayor-council communication, and we'll just start with you, Mr. Holman, work our way around.
Well, thank you, sir. I would concur with your comments about the GO bond. I know that I got on the council because I wanted to make improvements to people's everyday lives, just whatever little things we could do to make people's lives a little bit better, a little bit at a time, and talk to pretty much everybody on the council, including you, and everybody agrees with that concept. And that's exactly what this is doing. This is, especially on the park side, taking off with successful projects we did with the past GO bond and expanding those based on comments and input from the community. And everybody had a hand in this. This body, certainly staff and the voters, all the way down the line. This was a team effort. This is a we thing, not us. And this is really good. We've built this city greatly over the past 4 years. Anyone just driving through town that has been here sees that, and it's going to continue at a rapid pace. When Harry Truman was a county judge in Jackson County in the 30s, he ran and basically ran the office pretty much on the sole platform of farmers need and want good roads. We just we're about to put $18 million into improving ours, and it will be very much appreciated. We know how much people love our parks. They voted for that one as well as they did last time. And again, the city just gets better and better with this. So this is the stuff that makes you feel good about being here, and I think it makes our citizens feel good when they see what's going on. I get comments from time to time from people going, man, I can't believe the things that we're doing. So this, I would totally concur with what you've said. Really good stuff. I would also thank Chief. Great job on the policies and procedures, putting those online. And Simon, it's great to have him back. He served on Parks Board. We served together. I don't know if Sonia had left at that point, but she may have been on there at the same time. He was actually chair of Parks Board for a while, took a hiatus to go help some other people, and it's good to have him back. And that's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would remind you that, this is your meeting. You are running it. You could go first on comments. You don't have to go last, but I do appreciate your excitement, and I do, too, want to thank the citizens of Raymore for investing in our city, because this is a great city, and it's just going to get greater, and I do appreciate that. Chief, again, doing that is very proactive. I think using modern technology like we have to have access like that is awesome, and thanks for putting that together. I may refer to it from time to time just to look, so it makes things very easy. Thanks again. I want to thank, again, I'm just going to repeat, but our citizen volunteer, Mr. Cassis, in volunteering for the Parks Board. This city can't run without people like you, and thank you for your service for doing that. And I don't want to forget to thank our elected volunteers too. Mr. Townsend, thank you for your service. I know you're getting one thing off your plate here in a couple months, and you're just adding one more, so your plate certainly stays full, and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. Just a real fast thank you to the citizens who came out and voted for the GO bond issues, and for their trust in city staff and us in choosing valuable projects for the city. And I know representing people in Ward 4, the Ward Road issue was great big for us, and so I'm happy that as a team, this team in the room, we're able to bring that improvement to Ward 4. It's going to be significant for the people in Ward 4 and also for the rest of the city. A lot of us use that road to travel in and out of Raymore. So really excited about those projects coming along, and welcome back, Simon. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great comments from my councilman to the right of me, all three of them. I'll add just a little bit more than what Councilman Abdelgawad said. Yeah, thank you, Ward 4 voters, but this was partially you participating and making your voices heard over the years in the community conversations. And, they say the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You guys really made your voices heard on Ward Road over the years, and this is a long time coming, and so you've earned this, and we're very, very happy we're finally going to see this. There's also, if you look, there are a lot of amenities in this that will favor Ward 4, so a lot of great things for us. So thank you to all the voters in Raymore for overwhelmingly supporting both these measures, and I really look forward to seeing these projects as we go the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to my fellow council members also for the comments. Similarly, just like Mr. Holman said, when he ran and when I ran for office the first time, one of the comments that I made and one of the things on my campaign, I believe it was, as far as transportation and strategically growing our community, was not disparaging the staff and the council at the time. Your outstanding job, because it showed. Streets were outstanding, and as I'm on now, and we've been, as Mr. Burke has, excuse me, Mr. Barber, Mr. Burke is not here, I know that, has said earlier, yes, my PTO, as soon as I earn it, it disappears from my pay stub there. But it's for that reason that I joined the council, was to lend my services and my voice, not that I'm in any way a highway or logistician or mover of things across the highway, but just lending thoughts and ideas to things and getting people thinking about what ways we can do things to better our community. And it has shown before I was on council, and it still shows to today, as it was reflected in the vote, and not because of, but because of the vote, and because of those citizens who have responded to citizen surveys, who's the top of our organizational chart, and that tells us what their needs and desires are, and staff putting together some outstanding things before us to make some decisions on. So again, thank you to all the residents. Look forward to, should it pass, should the nomination go through in another capacity, to help the county as a whole as well as our community as we continue to grow, because the need is great. We're not sitting on our laurels. We are going to grow. We're continuing to grow, and we need to make sure that the arteries into and around our city supports that growth. So I appreciate the community seeing that and putting the wheels into motion to make that a reality. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobson.
So you put me at the tail end this time, huh? Okay.
Actually, poor Tom's all the way at the tail end over there.
Well, I'll be, I think, duplicitous, is that the word?
There you go.
In terms of what my fellow council members have said, I do want to thank the residents, citizens of Raymore for their trust in us in passing the GO bonds. I do believe and have always firmly believed that the number one policy for any of us is our financial policy. You know, the citizens and the residents have shown trust in us to continue to evolve this community, to continue to improve it, and they did so in an incredible fashion. Just Raymore question 1, 78.99 over 21, so 79 over 21. The Parks and Rec, 64 over 35, in a time when the economy's taken a hit. You know, you could easily see where people would come forward and say, well, we're hurting right now. But they also understood the vision of the city. They have a vision of the city, and I really wanted to thank all of them for that. I wanted to thank staff for putting all the information, getting it out there, making sure that our residents were well informed so they could make an informed decision. The communications was great. Mr. Fearborn, the stuff you and your staff put together was just, it was second to none. It's probably, you've always done good work in the past, but I thought this is your best yet, and I'm sure there'll be better to come. Also, Chief Zimmerman, I appreciate all the transparency in your work. What I really appreciate about it is oftentimes in these situations, the ball will get dropped. Someone, you know, things go away and then we get on to our regular job, but you have not allowed that to happen. You're focused on making sure that the community understands where you stand, where our police officers stand. I really appreciate that. As Councilman Barber said, using current technology to make that happen, that's great. Finally, not a bad night for Ward 1 with volunteers. Mr. Cassis, thank you for coming back. You and I have not had the opportunity to meet. I look forward to it. I've heard great things. So, and then of course, to my fellow councilman and Ward 1 Representative Councilman Townsend, for the additional duties he's getting ready to take on with the KCATA. That is, I know he's busy, but I really was happy to hear that there was a position available for one of our representatives on this. So lots of thanks, lots of good things going on in the city of Raymore. In the middle of a lot of negativity out there.
Craziness,
I think there's a lot
really.
of a lot of positivity. There's another word, by the way, that going on right now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Circo. How are you, Tom?
I'm here, over here in the corner. But I won't make it long. Everybody's letting me go on like, Circo's going to talk. We'll be here all night. But I promise to make it short. Basically, Chief Zimmerman, again, thank you for being proactive with Mr. Jones, stepping up and keeping it going forward and not slacking. That's great. Mr. Cassis, Simon, I've known you for a long time. Welcome back, sir. We welcome you aboard the Park Board. Thanks to Mr. Fearborn and Mr. Kress when they worked through these GO bonds, when they worked for the future of the streets and the infrastructure, like everybody said, when I went out and talked to people, they were very open to want to get something done because the city of Raymore feels they're one of the best cities around and they want to stay in front of the rest. And they believe that. And that's what's great about our city and great about all of us working here, the city, the council, the mayor. The people believe in what we do. They believe and they don't want to wait. They want to move progressively forward. They want to get this done. They were willing to vote yes on these two questions and to get the funds started, the money for the roads, especially the people in Ward. But we're making a movement because Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Kress, and these heads who get together and look into the future for the things we need now. And really proud of the city and all of us who work so hard with the city and talk to the people. And they were very positive. I've talked to many people and they're very positive. They didn't want to wait, and that's a good sign. They believe the city, they believe in us, they believe in the city, that where we're going financially at a troubled time was okay. They're ready to step behind it and say, we believe in you, and they did by this vote, a large vote to say yes to get these GO bonds going. Again, like I said, I think that's good, but I believe the city. And the last thing I say, my constituents on South Sunset Lane wanted me to tell you thank you. The curb started today, and they're very excited and pleased to see this curb work being done. So I want to reach out and say thank you for them, and I talked to many of them, and they're very happy. But again, it's a good night for the city. It's a good time. It was a good vote, and we are moving forward. We are considered one of the most aggressive, progressive cities in the area. And most of the people here, that's why they live here, and they want to stay that way. They love that idea. So thank you for all the council, the mayor, and the city. You guys have done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And I'll finish it up by saying that you know how I feel about the GO bond issues. Thank you, everybody, for that. And I want to thank the chief again and her staff and Ms. Harmer. I know how much work that was to put all that together in such a short period of time to make sure that we are transparent with our community. I know that back when I was police chief, I wish I'd have thought of it then as well, because it would have made your life a little bit easier. But at the time, we were still renewing our policies at the time, so we had to work through that. And so to get those into a digital format did take a lot of time and effort, and I appreciate you and your staff and Ms. Harmer for the work that they've done on that. And thank you to Melissa as well for the work she did on the GO bond issue. I mean, the type of advertising that we were able to, I wouldn't call it advertising, and educational materials that we were able to put together with regard to that, that let people know exactly where their tax dollars were going. I think that information made it much easier for people when they went into the voting poll to make that mark in favor of. And so it was a great effort on everybody's part there, and I appreciate all of you. I appreciate the work that you do. You don't know how much we up here at the council table appreciate the work that we do. I know we say it, and sometimes it may go I don't know, as unimportant because we say it so much. But we say it from the heart. It really does. Everybody up here at this council table truly means it when they say it, and I've seen it in other areas where it's said but not meant. But I feel it from this team, and they really do care about you and care about the work that you do. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Simon. I did want to say, Simon, good to see you again, buddy. Glad to have you back. And you bet, buddy. Mr. Holman, did you have something?
Yes, sir. A request, with your leave and the rest of the council, and perhaps staff. When the virus hit, some of you may remember Mr. Feuerborn instituted a hiring freeze because we didn't know how hard that was going to hit us. There were a number of positions that needed to be filled. I know that he has lifted that hiring freeze, at least, if not across the board, for many of the positions. And so we have new people coming on. And
yes, we do.
We don't get to contact the people quite like we used to. We've cut down on a lot of the public events. We've had to because of the rise in the cases. Perhaps if staff and you were so inclined and the rest of the council, maybe at a future meeting you could just kind of give us an update on what positions have been filled, who those people are, and maybe just a little short bio about their background. I know I, for one, would be interested in hearing that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
I think we could probably do it at the work session. I'd probably get something together for that.
We absolutely can, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Holman. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn the city council meeting for August 10th.
Thank you,
It's
Mr.
right
Townsend. Is there a second?
I'll second that, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. The motion been made second to adjourn this meeting. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. We're adjourned.